Welcome to the shooting show. This week, Byron covers driven grouse in his home glen in County Angus, and I put the Polaris Ranger through its paces. As we near the end of the grouse season for Invermark Estate, the Land Rovers take the beaters to their starting point once more. For once the weather has been kind, and although grouse numbers are markedly down, it looks like it's going to be a nice day on the hill. Working with careful management from the keepers, the line of beaters stride across the glen, pushing the grouse towards the guns hidden just over the horizon. Although grouse shooting is normally seen as a pastime for the uber wealthy, it brings much needed work for students during summer recess. Two of the beaters fend off a barrage of infamous Scottish midges to tell us about their experience.
Grouse beating probably wouldn't be everybody's first choice. What would you say to encourage people to give it a go?
It's a great way to get fit. The fresh air is, is very healthy for you.
Fits nicely with the academic calendar. It usually runs right up to the start of a university semester, so you can earn a bit of money in the end of the summer holidays. Until I came up here, I'd never done any kind of shooting or country sports. It was all new to me.
Yeah, never heard of it before and came up here.
So how did that come about then, if you come from a background where you weren't really involved in country sports?
I'd had a long period of unemployment, and I found it on the job centre website, looking for grouse beaters for 4 weeks. I thought, I'll try that, something new. And they wanted people to stay on for stags and hinds, so I decided to keep doing it.
How does this year compare to previous years? It's obviously been a very difficult year for the grouse. Have you noticed that in the beating line?
Yeah, there have been fewer grouse,
the grouse season has been a lot shorter, so there's fewer around.
Everyone's mood is a bit lower as well when there are fewer grouse.
As the drive ends, the horns blow, and now it's the job for those picking up to find the prize grouse. Starting at £180 a brace plus VAT, locating a single bird which otherwise would have been lost makes the pickers up an invaluable requirement for the grouse mower. Working their dogs, they locate the fallen birds before being packed into crates. With one drive completed, the guns enjoy a small tipple in celebration before moving on. A day on the moor is just as much about the atmosphere as the shooting. With the loaders ferrying the essentials to the butts, the next drive is soon underway. The camera is left running well behind the line of guns, capturing the action while all personnel wait safely out of sight. The day isn't set to be a big bag, but the guns are seeing some spot up and down the line. There are some challenging birds flying over the butts, and a few good shots bring them to the ground.
Oh, what a shot!
As the fastest game bird in the world, there is a reason red grouse are so well sought after. You have to be an experienced shot and consistently shoot this iconic species. With only a few birds left to locate, it's almost time for lunch. Diving into the rations, the beaters eagerly fill their faces after the morning's hard graft. For the guns, it's a more civilised affair, and they are in for a treat as one of the beaters is a fiddle player. Everybody tucks in while outlawed tunes flow from outlawed strings and drift down the glen. Despite heaving rain en route to the last drive of the day, the weather breaks just long enough to enjoy some dry shooting. The wind has picked up and the grouse are flying fast, but the guns still manage to drop a few birds. The coveys are small with a lot of single birds flying through. This follows the trend seen in Angus this year. The populations have been hit hard by this season's weather conditions, and as a result the number of grouse days have been cut back considerably.
Andy, it's been an interesting day up on the hill today. The weather hasn't quite played ball, but there's a few grouse on the ground. Can you give me an overview of how the day went?
Yeah, it's a day that we've kind of cobbled together. We've done a couple of drives from 2 separate days, and we're quite happy with what we've seen. We've managed to put some grouse over the guns. They've had a good bit of shooting, and fortunately for us, they didn't do too much damage. So I would like to think that everybody's happy.
Apart from grouse numbers being vastly down this year, what other challenges have you faced as the season's gone on to produce the grouse over the guns?
Well, the biggest problem's been that because we've only had pockets where we've had grouse, we haven't been able to go to the place that the wind best suited. So driving the grouse that we did have was took a little bit more work.
So are you quite comfortable with the amount of grouse that you've got as stock running into next year now?
Not really. The problem being that we haven't been seeing broods. We haven't been seeing a great number of young grouse, and of course, you're really needing them for your breeding stock for next year. So no, I think the numbers are going to be depleted for a few years.
Do you think that cancelled days of this year are going to affect people coming back next year and the year after? Do you think there'll be some clients who just think, let's go somewhere else and let's leave Scotland alone because we just don't know if there's going to be grouse?
That's a good question. I would like to think that the guests that we have coming here, we get a lot of regulars, if you like. They keep coming back. I'd like to think it was more than just the grouse shooting that was bringing them back here. However, I think if you went for several years without good numbers, people are bound to get fed up.
With the grouse season over at Invermark, Andy and the team will have to hope the weather in the coming year is much more conducive to good survival rates. Only time will tell, but with good keepering, let's hope next year's a better one.
The Invermark keepers there showing us how to drive red grouse. And now, the shooting show news.
This is the shooting show news. £1 billion. That's what this summer's terrible weather has cost the rural economy, according to the BBC. Shows and events were among the hardest hit sectors, with high-profile events such as the CLA and Scottish Game Fairs succumbing to poor conditions. It's not all bad news though, as the Midland Game Fair reported nearly 100,000 visitors, a significant increase on last year. Graham Sturzaker left the Midland Game Fair a happy man in a new Mitsubishi L200. Sturzaker fought off competition from C-Class shooter Stephen Armstrong, 69 to 53, in the grand final of the Mitsubishi World Series to take home the goods. Sturzaker also took home a new Browning 525 after beating Chris Childerhouse in the final of Browning Rabbit Mania 18 to 17 x20. More in the next issue of Clay Shooting. The Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust has issued an urgent message to shoots across the country to avoid shooting wild grey partridges, as they have suffered one of the worst breeding summers in living memory. Results from the early partridge count schemes indicate that the population has been hit hard by the cold and wet conditions. The GWCT advises that shoots can help the partridge over the winter by providing food and shelter crops into the spring to give the breeding population the best chance of being able to successfully hatch a brood next year. Conor McFlynn won the European Field Target Championship after a tense shoot-off victory over FT stalwart Andy Colpin. McFlynn, last year's world champion, shot a 49x50 on the first day of competition to get one hand on the trophy, and, in testing Sunday conditions, registered a 45x50 with his Steyr LG 110. Colpin, who was able to manage the wind on Weston Park's woodland course better than anyone on the second day of shooting, took McFlynn to a shoot-off, but ultimately it was the Northern Irish shooter who prevailed and took the title. Full report in the next issue of Egg and Shooter, out next week. The Northern Ireland Environment Agency has confirmed that the general licences for pest shooting have not been changed in the renewal process. General licences are reviewed annually, and although shooters do not need to apply for one, they must abide by the terms of the licence. The current licence will run according to its current terms until the 10th of September 2013. That was the Shooting Show News.
The introduction of the quad bike was a godsend for hard-pressed gamekeepers used to relying on Shanks's pony to go where their 4x4 feared to tread. But in recent years the quad has been superseded by bigger, better, more versatile all-terrain vehicles. Polaris has been a market leader in this sector. The 29 horsepower Ranger 400 has a high output 455cc engine, giving a top speed of 40 miles an hour. True all-wheel drive keeps you moving, automatically engaging all four wheels when you need more forward traction and reverting to two-wheel drive when you don't. The VersaTrack Turf mode unlocks the rear differential for easier, tighter turns that won't tear up the ground. The rear suspension has 9 inches of travel and 5-point adjustable preload, so the suspension can be stiffened for heavy loads. The dump box has a more than adequate 226 kilograms of cargo capacity with a gas-assisted dumping facility for easy unloading. The time I have saved using the Polaris tipper is immense. Previously I had to lift, carry and tip 10-15 kilo bags to each pond from the quad. With 4 ponds to feed every other day it was quite a task.
On this estate we have a number of duck ponds, and the Polaris range is absolutely perfect for feeding the ducks. The duck's got that flat bill for one thing only, and that's for shoveling food down its neck. Hence we use a lot of this stuff, barley, headed barley here. The tipping facility on the Polaris Ranger means I can back right into the pond, tip her away and shovel it down the shallows. Absolutely perfect.
Gamekeepers will find the Ranger indispensable. Its versatility knows no bounds. Here I set up a number of pheasant hoppers at strategic sites to prevent birds straying over the boundary. A hopper will most often stop birds heading to the neighbours. The Polaris enables me to quickly deploy a hopper in an area alongside a hedgerow that the pheasant poults had a propensity to follow despite my best efforts at pushing them back. But it isn't just about gamekeeping. Stalkers will love the Polaris Ranger for deer recovery. The dump box is great for transporting shot deer. Smaller species such as roe can be just lifted in, and bigger beasts such as fallow or seeker can be swung into the box on full tip mode, thereby pushing the box back into the locked position, with none of that tricky strapping, questionable health and safety and carcass contamination concerns that one has to consider when recovering deer with a quad bike. I have used this ATV for a variety of tasks on the shoot this season, and I will be sorry to have to hand it back after the test. Polaris is certainly taking ATVs to new levels.
That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. We're out every Monday, 7:30 PM UK time. This is The Shooting Show.